infrastructure, middleware, and interfaces as a unilateral stack. It's more designed as a core middleware where it can talk to multiple different kinds of operating systems, and so the way that architecture is designed is very critical. The system on point number 5 is very software centric. It isn't based too much on hardware or on services that are being delivered. It's largely around the software and the analytics around it, and the intelligence that you create within the software side of it, that is the heart of the solution. The next piece is that it allows for a multi-axis pivot. If you need to change how you want the business to grow, you aren't trying things on one dimension and then changing that one dimension. You're actually trying things on multiple dimensions, seeing what is tracking, and then being able to change and pivot on a multiple dimension or multiple axes at the same time. And then finally, the way you design for it is one where you aren't designing where every local solution that you create is very unique. You typically have a global architecture, and the localization is just a refinement. And so you need to be able to do that in terms of how the solution works. Hopefully some of this will become clearer to you as we get through some examples. But here's why nonlinear is actually very interesting. So one is it typically has very high margins. It could have some fixed costs, but the actual marginal costs for growth aren't very high, and so it's a very high margin business. And therefore, as you look to scale up, you're looking at high profitability. The second is the initial cost is quite flexible. You have choices since it's based on open architecture and open solutions. You can decide what's the best way for you to design around it. And there's lots of freeware available. And so you can be quite flexible about how much you want to invest to begin with. The third is you can co-opt partners along the journey and therefore also use them as part of your marketing muscle or your approach into the market, and then therefore offset some of your marketing costs as you're growing the business. The fourth is because it's got all these different facets, you have multiple waves of growth. You're not just looking at growing one business and then competing around that one business. You are actually enabling multiple waves of business growth. The fifth is you have long tail revenues, which are always exciting because that's what drives a lot of value and valuation in a business. The sixth is it's a global footprint. You're actually not focusing on a very local business. You're focusing on a global business at some stage. You don't have to start there. You can start very locally, but you're thinking about building something very global. And then finally, there are very, 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 very few companies that I have identified who are thinking about building businesses like this from the get-go. So you will have limited competition if you design your business to be a nonlinear design business. So very quickly, we will jump into a couple of examples that I have been involved in. So to give you my background, I am an engineer. I've worked in the automotive sector. I did my MBA. I worked with McKinsey & Company here and in Wall Street. I then moved on and started my own offshoring advisory business. And I joined a company there called Everest as a partner. I set up their think tank in Delhi, and that's where I first started to discover the nature of these types of businesses. And I built my first one when I came back in 2007 as the CEO of Total Environment, a real estate company here in Bangalore called eBuild, and we'll use that as the first example. And now as part of Mukti, I'm working on 3 others. One is my own, and then 2 are 2 of my clients. And all these 4 have been designed around this concept of being a non-linear type solution. So let's start with the first one, which is the home business, and it's all around home design. And the solution is a platform called eBuild. I did this as part of my stint at Total Environment. And if you look at design of a home, and I've done this entire cloud of different questions, a home comprises all of these things, and these are questions for a consumer. How many rooms do I want? How do I want to use my rooms? what kind of finishes do I want in each room, what types of switches, where do I place them, what's the design of my fixed furniture, what kind of lighting would I like, what's the overall layout in the room, what's the budget I want to spend, how do I design for future changes, how do I add on items, what kind of flooring should I get in each room, and then movable furniture. And there's a longer list than this. And if you think about solutions that have existed in the market for this, there are lots of solutions that have existed for kitchenware, for finished designs, for flooring, for lighting solutions, for layout design. And these are all specialist solutions. And eBuild is a platform that we built as part of Total Environment we designed, where we said the overall design of the home, which includes its layout and includes these interior items and includes these finishes, is there a way we can architect the language around that? And they'll build a core platform that resonates with that language, and then build a middleware that manages that, and then API-based solutions to work with partners. And that's what we did. And that is what I call a non-linear solution. So now, as we built that out and use it in Total Environment, we're partnering with best-in-class flooring companies from around the world. We're partnering with best-in-class cabinetry companies, interior finish companies, interior designers, and enabling how they operate within their own worlds in terms of this broader ecosystem for homes. And that's one solution that we built, where the core solution was designed and owned in the platform that we built. Another example is the whole business of personal time, which is a product that I currently have designed as part of Mukti called Blunkit. And here too, if you look at the kinds of specific questions that people might have in context of personal time, it's all these kinds of things. What are my friends doing? What's interesting this week? What's the trending stuff that's happening? When's my favorite artist in town so I can plan to go for that show? What's the new movies releasing? Where should I take my son out? What's a good restaurant to try out? Who else is free among my friends that I can go out with? Are there tickets available for something? What's the best offers? Where are the best discounts? What else can I do? Etc., etc. And again, you have lots of solutions both in the US and here that are designed around this, right? Whether it's Foursquare, Yelp, Zomato, Book My Show, there's a bunch of solutions that are solving for each of these different markets. And again, the way we design Blunkit is we try to create an architecture that cut across all these different markets, and then figure out a way to partner with Book My Show and Zomato and Indian Stage and Just Eat and others, and did win-win solutions with all of them and co-opted them into this kind of bigger ecosystem around personal time. Around this, just again, same analogy if you apply to spaces, there is the whole world of spaces getting smarter, and you have TVs that you can turn on smartly, you have doors you can open, you have security solutions that you can put in place, you can turn on and turn off your lights, you can control temperature, you can optimize energy, you can turn on your washing machine or your bake, you can sense children in bedrooms in terms of for security or safety reasons, you can stream music, and again there's lots of specialist solutions that exist for a lot of these things, all the way from video door phones, IP cameras, dimmer solutions, smart switches, electronic locks, sensors. And what we've done again in Silvan in terms of what we've designed as Silvan Connect is again a core platform that kind of tries to design across all of these and therefore create an ability to kind of solve for the overall ecosystem play. And the final one that I'm working on is in the overall talent space, where we're starting with what we call graduate hiring. And if you look at the overall market of graduate hiring, where there are, colleges, most of them 70% in remote locations, tier 2 or tier 3 remote locations. There's a bunch of different things that are required for people looking to do that, which is accessing these candidates, their resumes, assessing them, communicating with them in the process of communicating them about yourself as a company, the entire interviewing, logistics around traveling to those locations, support around tests or interviews, etc. Actually figuring out when to meet people at different stages of the process. And then when you've hired them, figuring out staying for them, financing, onboarding. If some of them need reskilling, then figuring out that reskilling. And once again, if you look at that market, there are specialist players that have existed, eLitmus, Metatrack, and lots of other players, Aspiring Minds, Talent Spring, who are solving specific aspects of that market. And Employability Bridge is another company I work with, which is trying to kind of create the core platform that can integrate across all of these and create what we call an ecosystem play that allows for a non-linear type of business solution. So I'll stop there because this isn't necessarily a very straightforward topic. I think just to summarize again, this is the future types of opportunities that can exist. To give you some quick examples of non-linear businesses, Google is one in terms of the entire platform that they're driving across Drive, Google Docs, YouTube, etc. And they're integrating that themselves, even though they built the individual platforms as well. Facebook around the social platform, iTunes around music and media management, Amazon around what they're doing in terms of a number of different businesses built across digital infrastructure. So these are all examples of non-linear platform ecosystem type solutions. And that's the businesses that I'd like to focus on emulating in terms of creating the next wave of these type of solutions. So Sneha, should we move on and open this up to questions?
I'll just stop. So we'll start with the Q&A. If you have any questions, please post in your questions. Our first question is from Saif. He says, how are the opportunities in India as far as connected homes go, especially devices that need Wi-Fi and high-speed internet architecture?
So Saif, if you just look at Bangalore in 2009, if you look at the number of projects that existed for smart homes, there were just 5 projects for smart homes in 2009. And they were largely in the 1 crore plus project type. And so the market was small. If you look at what we tracked this year, there's about 80 projects where the builders themselves have designed smart homes as part of their spec. Right? And they're trying to sell them as smart homes. You have Shobha, Brigade, a number of them doing that. And many of them are trying to solve that with the infrastructure. Today, that market size has grown where just in Bangalore alone, it can be considered to be a $30–40 million business. And it's growing rapidly. And if you look at the top 10 or 12 cities, it's a pretty large business. And it's been driven by the fact that, yes, Wi-Fi, I think that the largest driver of that has been the fact that mobile devices, access devices, your iPads and your phones are in consumers' hands, and they can do a lot more things with it.
Our next question is from Anamika. She says, does the business I'm in need to be completely scalable for this model to work?
So yes, a nonlinear business is typically quite scalable. Like I said, it's a high margin business, so it's software driven. So software, and especially if you run things on the cloud with Amazon Web Services, etc., allows you that scalability. It isn't manpower intensive, which is a services business. It isn't high capital intensive or infrastructure intensive. And so yes, it is. the very nature of the business is very scalable.
Any more questions? Yeah, there's a question from Varun. He says, how and in what way ideas need to be generated for such kind of businesses?
That's a very good question, Varun. I think the first thing is to really decide what you're trying to solve. And so the ideas, I think, will come. I think it's not easy to design a non-linear business. And if you choose the low-hanging fruit, which are the digital businesses, so all of what I talked about, iTunes, which was a media-based business, Facebook, which is all to do with social and personal communications, Amazon, which is to do with e-commerce and digital infrastructure, and Google, which is to do with search and documents in terms of the digital highway. Those are all low-hanging, easy fruit. Those are things that were easy to put online because they were designed for it. The smart spaces solution, the Silvan Connect, has been a very complex solution, right? Where we try to integrate hardware, software, a number of these different interoperable technologies to kind of come up with the solution. It's taken a team that has 100+ years of experience from TI and other places to kind of work this out over the last 4 years. And so none of these are very straightforward businesses, but some of them that still exist out there, parts of e-commerce, parts of solutions around education, especially around financial inclusion. So we look at just the India picture. There's a bunch of solutions that are around financial inclusion, that are around vocational ideas. You can design, you just have to think about something where you're enabling the ecosystem versus delivering a specialist piece of it. And then I think the next part of the trick is to identify markets where partners already exist that you can work with. So some of those specialist partners that you want to work with, they could be microfinance agencies, they could be NGOs, depending on the market you place, they exist, and so you design your solution to include them so that you can go to market. And so, for example, to give you the example of Blunkit, in Bangalore, we've had to work with and tie up with partners like Book My Show, Just Eat, and others, because they exist, and then I design my solution to kind of work around what they already bring to the market.
Any more questions? Joe, I think we have just these many questions for the webinar, so we'll just finish the webinar. Oh, there's another question. So the question is from Anamika. She asks, I am in conflict resolution space and I'm in the process of building a model. Can we have your email ID for questions that occurs to us later?
So I would just send it to Sneha, and I would be glad to take and answer specific questions. This is not a straightforward area. I think I don't understand what you mean by conflict resolution. There are a number of companies in that area, so I don't know what exactly you're trying to do. But I can, the overall business of creating an ecosystem around that is something that can be thought through.
So thank you, Joe, for that interesting session. Thank you to all our attendees. Please do send in your feedback to us at eclub@nenglobal.org. And if you found the session interesting, feel free to blog and post about it. NEN Entrepreneur Support and Training is conducting a 2-day workshop for entrepreneurs on tools for growth on April 19th and 20th at Indore. The workshop will include panel discussion and mentoring session by experts. For more details, visit our website eclub.nenonline.org. Thank you once again and have a nice evening. Thank you.
Thanks, ma'am. Thanks, everyone.